This is Ivan, and Ivan finally became an intermediate player. After playing tons of games, after getting coached for so many hours, after fighting endless battles, after doing tons of puzzles, he finally reached the rating of 1300, and he's now right at the tipping point of 1400. However, Ivan faces one problem. He finishes the opening like he learned as a beginner, but now at the middle game he has no idea what should he do, how should he play. Ivan, however, decides to get recoaching again, and he learns something very interesting about the middle game. Now, after playing a lot of games, we realize one thing very clearly. It's that there is not just one middle game idea, but there is actually two different middle game plans that you can try to use in order to win more chess games. Both of them need to be applied in very different scenarios, and each of them has like a different benefit. So of course, for example, the benefit that you can see on scenario number one, and read this along as well, is that you win a lot quicker, but it's a lot more rare. The benefit of scenario number two is that it's a lot more stable, a lot more safer, and it's a lot more common. So the first action step is to take this and copy it and clip it and paste it somewhere in your room, just so that you could see. That's the first action step. Now the second one, and this is kind of like a question in your mind, which one do you think you see more on your games, and which one do you see that chess masters and grandmasters show more? Because here's the thing, the first scenario is that you make an attack, and you win relatively quickly by move 30 or so. The second scenario is a lot more rare. It's a 50 move game that is taking a lot longer, a lot more safer, but a lot longer. You probably have seen most famous players and masters show the first scenario because it's a lot more exciting, because there's an attack and a quick checkmate and a huge material gain. But the first scenario is not the one that is always happening. The second scenario is maybe less exciting, but it's also the one that happens way more often. That's why you see the second scenario in your games a lot more than the first one. So it's absolutely fine. But there are times where the first scenario does happen, and we're gonna talk about this right now. Let's take a look into an example of the first scenario. So first of all, the greatest indicator that it's going to be a race of two attacks. Basically, both sides are gonna try to rip open the pawns that there are against the enemy king, and thus to win material in checkmate. Okay, this is the exact case in here and in here too. The first and most important and clearest indicator that it's going to be like this is both sides obviously plan to castle in opposite directions. And that's the first and the clearest sign that it's going to be like this. If this happens, black is a little bit better in here because he has a strong bishop for two weak knights. Anyways, b4, trying to progress, and white does the move knight to d5. Black have made the move rook to b8 and try to figure out why. The reason is this is an attack, a race of two attacks. Basically, you need to now progress your pawns to as quickly as possible to the enemy king, open these pawns and encrypt because of the attack. Black did not do that. White, however, continues as usual. He does the move a5 with very clear intentions of clashing these four pawns against the pawns of the enemy king and probably win either checkmate or win material. That's the clearest idea that there is in here. Now let's say for a moment that black does the move knight to e5. Again, this move does not progress the attack. The computer in both of these mistaken inaccuracies says that a5 was the best because it's an attacking race. It's that important. Now, white continues, g5, h5, and now that's basically very obvious what is going to happen. These pawns, one of them is going to get traded, and we're gonna rip open the king again to progress. Now I want to focus. It's obviously that this is good for white, but I want to focus more on the second scenario because you're gonna face the second scenario a lot, and I mean a lot more than the first one. By the way, I want to mention, if information like this is new to you, then consider subscribing to this channel because I bring advanced and intermediate chess information for beginners and intermediate players. This information is the type of knowledge that I paid money for, and you're getting it for free. Let's talk about the second type of moves, the second scenario that could happen in a chess game. Basically, you're gonna find and identify a weakness, you're gonna use that weakness and gain such a good position in comparison to your opponent by being a lot more active. What you're going to do then is you're going to use that to win a pawn. You're going to then trade queens, get to a winning endgame because of your material advantage, and you're going to use that advantage to then make a new queen, and you're going to use that to then checkmate, which is obvious. So e4, right, c5, usual beginning, knight f3, e6, c3, c3, d5, e takes d5. Black takes with the queen this time because, well, because he actually can. The knight won't be developed here to threaten, so that's why he does that. d4, knight f6, knight b to d2, c takes d4. Now here's a question. How do you take? Do you take with the knight or do you take with the pawn? Well, the answer is actually neither. What you should do is you should first of all move the bishop to c4. Remember, the queen is here. We want to attack it, all right? And by taking with the knight, we have moved one of our pieces twice, which is not the best thing by any means to do. Plus, he's now going to have to move somewhere, which is great for us. So bishop c4, that's the move that should have happened. However, this time, me as white, this is a game that I've played, and I was white here. What happened is I took. And now look at this and ask yourself, using this second scenario, positional superiority, ask, what is weak in my position? Something that is weak is something that can't be protected by other pawns. What is weak is d4. That's a pawn that will never be protected by these two pawns ever again, basically. Black, seeing this, and he was way better than me, identifies this, and he's going to try now slowly. It's not going to happen quickly, it's gonna take a while, but he's going to try to mount as much pressure as he can towards this one pawn. It's going to win it, and then it's going to transfer into a winning game where he has more material than I am and use that to win. c takes d4, bishop e7, bishop c4, queen to d6. Now we move this, which is a good thing. We move the bishop, but this pawn is now a weakness. That's the difference between the two moves. Queen d6, castling, he castles too, king side. The greatest, one way to see that you're having the second scenario, the most common one, is where both sides castle to the same side of the board. That's usually going to be the king side anyways, alright? b3, b6, bishop b2, bishop b7, rook e1, knight c6. And you see now the idea that black has. He's going to mount pressure, basically what we've just talked about, against this pawn via this knight. This bishop will move here, one of the rooks will join here, both of them will be here, the queen will move somewhere, and it's going to take that pawn, slowly but surely. And this is the key thing in here. The game is slow, it's not quick. Knight e6, knight e4, which is an inaccuracy. And why this is an inaccuracy? Very simply, it allows a take, and after I take here with my own rook, he can do the move f6, and now he has a third piece already aiming at this pawn. And remember, the key is win the pawn and use that to convert the game. f6, I've made back then another miss, queen d2, knight e7, and you see the problem that arises very soon. Rook e2, rook a to d8, rook d1, bishop takes on f3, removing a defender that I have, plus creating this very, very ugly pawn structure that I have, which is now completely ruined. This pawn is also a weakness. Knight to d5, bishop takes d5, queen take, and queen to d3. Trying to add another defender, but this is again a weakness because there is no other pawn in here. That's why this is weak. Another defender won't really help. Rook to d7, rook c2, rook here. I'll just walk through the moves now. Queen e4, g6, trading queens, rook c to d2, and e5. So yeah, this pawn is now going to fall. And remember, I obviously cannot take, otherwise I'll lose, so I cannot take. And it doesn't help me anymore. King f1, and yeah, he wins this pawn. And let's just quickly breeze through these moves so that you see this. c1, rook 8 to d7, bishop a3. But at this point, this is winning for him. Bishop to b2, which is an inaccuracy in and of itself, winning a second pawn, and yeah, this is winning. But this entire sequence happened because of the first pawn in here. From this point in the game, these are the two scenarios. If the second one demands a lot more positional understanding, And thus I would suggest to really to go and buy a book which is called How to Reassess Your Chess. It's this one right here. And it's a very complicated book, but it is a very good one for chess intermediates who try to study chess. I use it too myself up until now. Anyways, that's it for today's video. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer all of them. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.